Black Frontiers. A History of African American Heroes in the Old West by Lillian Schlissel. Black Homesteaders. Homesteading was not easy for black or white settlers. Rocks, grass, and trees had to be cleared before crops could be planted. A farmer needed a horse, a mule, and a plow. He needed seed to plant and food for his family until the crops were ready to harvest. Most of all, a pioneer needed a home. In regions where there were trees, pioneers built log cabins. But in Kansas and Nebraska, there was only tall grass as high as a man's shoulder. Pioneers learned that tough root systems under the grass held the dirt firmly, and sod could be cut like bricks and piled, layer upon layer, until it took the shape of a house. These homesteaders were called sodbusters, and their homes were called soddies. Sod homes could be warm and comfortable. Some were 2 stories high, with glass windows and chimneys. But in heavy rain, smaller sod houses leaked, and some families remembered being surprised by a snake slithering through a wall. In North and South Dakota, where the land was rocky and winter temperatures fell to 30 degrees below zero, early pioneers burrowed into the ground and covered themselves with an earthen roof. They brought their small animals into the house in the winter, while cows and goats huddled on the roof, warming themselves on the house that was under their feet. During the first seasons in a new settlement, a pioneer woman might have no stove. She dug a hole in the ground and fed the fire with weeds, adding small rocks like coals to keep in the fire's heat. Buffalo chips, the droppings of buffalo, provided the fuel. When the great animals migrated across the land, women and children gathered chips for the family's cooking fires. In the hot and dry climate of the Southwest, pioneers built homes with thick walls made of mud and straw. The mud walls, called adobe, kept the houses cool in the summer and warm in the winter. In desert regions, women learned from the Indians to brew teas out of wild grasses and to make soap and shampoo from the yucca plant. In the early days of settlement, there were few black families homesteading. For them, loneliness was part of being a pioneer. But black pioneer families held on, and in sticking it out, they made the way easier for those who came after. The Exodusters. Men and women who had been slaves read in the Bible about the ancient Israelites who were brought out of bondage and delivered into freedom. Benjamin Singleton, born a slave in Tennessee, was determined that he would bring his people to free soil if it was the last thing he ever did. After the Civil War, Singleton visited Kansas, and over a period of years, he and his friends managed to buy part of a Cherokee reservation. In 1877, they advertised for homesteaders to start an all-black community there. They hoped to attract 200 families. Flyers promised that settlers who paid $1 in installments of 25 cents at a time, or otherwise as may be desired, could be part of the new community. By 1879, an exodus of black families out of the Old South began, and before long, there were 800 homesteaders in the new Kansas communities of Dunlap and Nicodemus. Benjamin Singleton said, "My people that I carried to Kansas came on our own resources. We have tried to make a people of ourselves." They were known as the Exodusters. Farmers in Nicodemus owned only 3 horses. One man plowed with a milk cow, and others broke ground with shovels and spades. White farmers saw how hard their new neighbors worked and lent the new settlers a team of oxen and a plow. Black farmers planted their first crops, and in time they prospered. By the turn of the century, there were about 8,000 black homesteaders in Nicodemus and Dunlap. Some black settlers moved farther west to Nebraska and Oklahoma, where they built 3 new black communities: Taft, Langston, and Bowley. George Washington Bush went all the way to Oregon Territory, where he introduced the first mower and reaper into the area around Puget Sound. Of all the black communities, however, Nicodemus and Dunlap remained the most famous. Each year, they celebrated the 4th of July, and they had their own special holiday, Emancipation Day. On July 31 and August 1, a square mile of land was set aside as a carnival fairground. There were boxing matches and baseball games. In 1907, the town formed one of the nation's first black baseball teams, the Nicodemus Blues. The Blues played black teams as far away as Texas, Nevada, and Louisiana. Satchel Paige, one of the greatest black pitchers in American baseball history, played ball in Nicodemus. In 1976, Nicodemus was designated a National Historic Landmark. The town's history is being recorded and buildings restored. It marks the proud legacy of black homesteaders in America.